What's up, guys? So I'm getting a lot of messages from people who are having gut issues, right? And whether it's people like me with an autoimmune disease like ulcerative colitis, or people who are experiencing irritable bowel syndrome, or some of you who are just trying to put on weight and you're eating a lot and you're experiencing gassiness and bloatedness and brain fog and all these things that come from trying to stuff calories down your face. This is something we have to address, and it's not often addressed by a lot of the popular YouTubers here on the interwebs, I guess you can call them, because there's such a trend to promote uh, macronutrition, focusing on the protein, focusing on the carbs, focusing on the calories, right? Um, and in some ways, that's just kind of a shortcut. And just telling you guys things that you can do to put on muscle, but not being very concerned about your overall health. You know, when I was younger, I used to stuff food into my face in an attempt to get bigger because I've always been a smaller guy, and it's been harder for me to build muscle. And as you can see, I'm not a huge guy right now by any means, um, and I've had to deal with that, overcome it mentally in some ways because we all want to be huge, we all want to be swole, but at the same time, there's certain things that a lot of us do to our body, like trying to stuff 5,000 calories down our face, that no human being should try to do if they're concerned with their health. So there's a couple of different things that I want to talk about now that can help you live a healthy lifestyle, help you to build muscle, help you to get stronger, but that can also make sure that you're taking care of your gut, right? Because if you don't have your gut, if your gut's not in order, one, your mind's going to be all kinds of screwed up, because the gut and the brain are connected via a long nerve called the vagus nerve. And anything that affects your gut, right, anything that affects your digestion can literally affect your brain. It can affect your mental performance, can affect how you're doing your job, how you treat your family, what kind of mood you're in all the time, whether or not you're getting depressed. A whole host of issues can happen if our gut is out of order. On top of that, if you're not digesting properly, you're not utilizing the nutrition that's in the food you are eating. So you're not getting everything you can out of it. That leads you more prone to not recovering properly, more prone to injury, more prone to disease, like cancer. So we really need to talk about this, right? So the biggest thing you have to understand about the gut is that it's an ecosystem. It contains something called the gut microbiome. Now, what this is an environment that contains a lot of bacteria. Now, there's really good bacteria that helps you to digest, that helps you to utilize your nutrition, that promotes positive brain activity, right? Again, because the gut sends messages to the brain, and the brain sends messages to the gut. Um, but there's also bad bacteria in there, and this causes things like gassiness, bloatiness, inflammation. But that can also negatively affect the brain, right? And so we need to make sure that there's a positive balance between good bacteria and bad bacteria. And there's different ways of doing this, right? And the first thing you have to understand is that there's certain things you can do to promote bad bacterial growth. Now, bad bacteria tend to thrive. Bad bacteria, but specifically, I'm talking about like Candida and a couple of other different types of bacteria, but they live off of sugar. Despite what certain crazy fucking people from Australia say, um, Candida live off of sugar. And if you're eating lots and lots of sugar, you can promote that bad bacterial growth. Similarly, if you're eating lots and lots of animal protein, right? Particularly charred meat, meat that's burnt, like bacon, for instance, or cured meats, or like a really charred steak, or very lean meat like chicken, or tilapia. If you're eating a lot of that stuff, that can promote bad bacterial growth. And so the way you get around this is one, you don't need as much animal protein as you think you do. Right now, I'm not a vegan, but I also don't agree with the idea of eating tons and tons of animal protein or more protein than we need. And the scientific literature says, as I mentioned in a video about a week and a half ago, the most we need to put on muscle is zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. So some things you can do here are, one, you can work in some vegetarian forms of protein. Hemp protein powder is great. Pea protein powder, and some of those are good, but also whole foods. I don't really necessarily want you relying on protein powder, but whole foods like hemp itself, like quinoa, like what's it called? Sacha inchi, which is a nut that's found in Peru, and other types of nuts and things like that. And I'm going to get into some other things about nuts and seeds and in a little bit. But just know that those are some really good sources of protein that you can take in. The other thing is, if you are going to eat meat, try to eat fattier cuts of meat. They tend to help with digestion a little bit more. Make sure you're eating your meat with vegetables, because that also helps with digestion and helps to promote that good bacteria. And things like bone broth and um, uh, other types of broth that also contain a lot of nutrients that can promote healthy intestinal growth, and heal the intestinal lining and heal the wall and reduce inflammation and things like that. So rather than focusing so much on eating like 10 chicken breasts a day, focus on some other things. Vary up your diet a little bit. Include some of those vegetable sources of protein. Include some organ meats, maybe if you're not a vegan. Maybe include some bone broth as well. Um, the other things we need to be concerned about here are two things. One, micronutritional density and digestibility, right? So micronutritional density, as I said, you want to make sure that you're including a lot of the vitamins and nutrients and minerals that you need to for your body to function properly, right? These provide all the kind of like working gears that help you to utilize the protein, utilize all this other stuff. And when we eat foods that are lower in micronutritional density, our bodies don't use them as well. And so that leads to a higher degree of inflammation. And when we have inflammation in our intestinal tract or anywhere in our body, it makes us feel like crap. It can also, again, lead to symptoms of autoimmune disease. It can lead to gassiness, bloatedness, but can also affect the central nervous system. Because again, the gut is connected to the brain and it could lead to reactions anywhere in your body. But we also have to look at this thing called digestibility. And this applies to those of us who are vegans, those of us who don't eat animal protein, right? Because plants, in and of themselves, and nuts and everything like this, they're also living things and they don't want to be eaten, right? So one of the things I do with my Brazil nuts and some of my raw almonds that I eat is I soak them. I soak them for 24 hours. Similarly, if you're eating things like oatmeal or brown rice or some other types of grains that have something in them called phytic acid. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly or not. That acid can lead to inflammation in the gut. And one of the things we want to try and do with those things is sprout them. Now, there's a lot of good tutorials about sprouting here on YouTube. I'll see if I can put a link below. But you want to sprout your grains and you want to soak your nuts. You want to soak your nuts. So make sure you're soaking them, and this makes them a little bit more digestible. If you're eating something like Brazil nuts attract a lot of mold. So you want to store your Brazil nuts in the freezer. And by doing this will allow you to utilize more of that nutrition that's in these foods, and it will also it'll make them more digestible, make them easier on the intestinal tract. The next thing is you want to make sure you're chewing your food. You should be chewing your food 20 to 30 times each time you take a bite. And if you're not chewing your food, you're one, inhibiting a lot of digestive processes that start in your mouth because your mouth contains enzymes that break certain nutrients down and makes them more useful for your body. But two, you can leave a lot of stuff in there that's going to really inflame your intestinal tract. And then finally, you want to make sure you're eating fermented foods. And when we think about fermented foods, we're thinking about things like kefir, like tipikos, which is a drink that a friend of mine, Ryan Neveu, he's doing videos about, and I'll see if I can post some links to some of his videos below. It's a fermented drink that tastes like soda. Kombucha, another fantastic fermented drink that can promote positive microbiome health, and things like kimchi and raw sauerkraut. These are also awesome, really good fermented foods that you can include in your diet, that are going to help you to promote positive gut health. As far as probiotic supplements go, I'm a little bit iffy on probiotic supplements right now, and the reason why I'm iffy on them is because what I've been finding through different forms of research is that a lot of the probiotic supplements that we buy, they don't necessarily contain live probiotic bacteria, mainly because they have to be kept cold to stay alive. So what you really want is live probiotics, and I suggest trying as much as possible to get that from whole foods. I hope this video makes sense, and that you're gonna try to implement some of these practices. Don't develop the get huge now and leave a huge corpse on the earth mentality that I've heard so much about in the past. That was my mentality, and you think that you're going for your purpose in life. You think that you're going for this awesome and amazing thing, but when your health goes down and you're put in a position where your body is completely breaking down because you ignored the signs, you ignored the fact that living in a certain way was hurting your body. When you're only 35 years old and you're running to the bathroom 40 times a day, it's not a good thing. And I don't know that all of you are going through that, but at least get yourself to a point where you're going to be able to live your best life, have your best mind, be your best self, be in your best mood, be able to perform for people, be able to perform at your job, and to bring your best package to the world. All right? So this is all for you. I love you all. If you've got questions, comments, if you disagree with anything I said, please put them below, and I will talk to you all soon. And check my websites below. Lots of other awesome content. Peace.